Hey everybody. So today I wanted to talk about the Hoppity's Hunt and Chocolate Factory and sort of the issues that I have with it. There's a couple things that it does right, but for the most part I'm not a big fan. I am top 500 in Hoppity's. I like the overall concept, but there's a lot of issues with it. And so the first thing I want to talk about is I feel like it would be disingenuous to not mention what the Hypixel team has already acknowledged and what they're going to put out soon. The first and most important of which being a Hoppity's Hunt RNG meter. And that's been needed for a long time. I mean, you've got guys out there who have double my rabbits. I've got 6,000. There are people out there with 10,000 that still only have 2 or 3 divines. So an RNG meter, super required. It's going to be really helpful. That should have come from the get-go, especially given the fact that divines have like a weight of 0.2, which effectively makes them a 1 in 2,000. That's just too rare. And there's going to be a new tower that has unique rabbits that cost coins to keep those rabbits for extra chocolate per second. And then the other economy integration faction rabbits, which will be tradable. You'll select a faction, and then you'll be able to find rabbits from that faction and trade them with other players. Hopefully this has a bit more of an economic impact than Hoppity's Chocolate Factory itself does, because the chocolate itself, and we'll get into this, basically now, is incredibly overtuned. I mean, the amount of chocolate that you get versus how much things cost and how much they're worth, it was clearly balanced for the early game and not for the late game. There's just an incredible amount of useless items in the store, so you basically end up having to burn chocolate on whatever you can to get those shop milestones. And that's pretty frustrating to deal with, especially knowing that there is a chocolate factory, like chocolate cap as well. That causes huge problems with trying to be able to save up for anything. I mean, there's caps on how much you can buy per year. They tried to put caps on things to keep the economy from chocolate from being too overtuned, but clearly it was too little too late. And then on top of that, it just kind of gets in the way of shop milestones. And speaking of milestones, I personally just believe that they end too early. The shop milestones, whatever, spending 800 mil, that's its thing, right? But when it comes to the actual milestones for chocolate produced, they end far too early. I mean, not only are you done with them way before the shop milestones, like 200 billion chocolate before, but it just feels like after a certain point, you're just gaining, over a week, you gain 40 billion chocolate, you spend it on one chocolate die, you get maybe 2 mil. It doesn't really provide anything. And then on top of that, you have to get the SkyBlock XP from divines too, which, I mean, I have huge issues with gating SkyBlock XP between that level of RNG. I mean, having to get a 1 in 2,000 drop 5 times just to get 50 SkyBlock XP is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the mythics are fine because they're much more common. You get a bunch of them from milestones and all this different shit, right? So you don't have to worry so much about the mythics. But the divines, without the RNG meter especially, the RNG meter is going to help with this, but that's SkyBlock XP. You shouldn't be gated from SkyBlock XP just because you don't have good RNG on Hoppity's Hunt. I do not agree with that at all. And then in the same vein, they locked a farming upgrade behind a mythic. Okay, I'm at 6,000 rabbits with no Zoro. I'm a huge farmer. You can see I'm doing it right now. I love farming. I'm trying to min-max absolutely everything about it. That's one of the only reasons I care about doing foraging, is to get my strength up for farming. But at the same time, not being able to get what is honestly a pretty significant increase during contests and then the chance to get, extra medals, that's a lot. And for it to be locked behind, not just the purchasing, but the usage of it, to be locked behind a mythic, God, it feels bad for that to be your last mythic. You're gated out of a good farming upgrade. That is problematic. I really think that they need to remove the cap on chocolate as well. I understand the intention is so that somebody can't leave the game for a year and come back and have a crazy amount of chocolate, but there's already a cap on how many of an item you can buy a year. And even if you were able to buy 5 times that cap, you wouldn't be able to crash the market for chocolate for Hoppity shit. I mean, it's already all essentially worthless. So it just doesn't really make any sense to have a cap on chocolate like that, at least at the highest prestige. And I also do think that there should be more levels of prestige. I would like to see it go all the way up to 10, reward more SkyBlock XP. Even if you don't add more towers, just an increasing amount of chocolate per second would be really nice. Integrate it more, the SkyBlock XP more into the idea of prestiging, which just takes time, as opposed to divines, which take RNG. That's very frustrating. And the last thing I want to mention is that I think that the RNG meter's retroactive progress needs to be way better than the experimentation table was. The experimentation table's progress was clearly set to be really low retroactively so that it didn't crash the T7 market, which is fine. But again, Hoppity barely affects the market at all. So it's not going to be that big of a deal if people manage to get 3 extra divines off their RNG meter, whatever it is. All it's essentially doing is unblocking people for the work that they've already done. So it should be far more rewarding, in my opinion. It's pretty much everything that I have to say about Hoppities today, or at least the Chocolate Factory wise. I wanted to keep this video short because my criticisms of Hoppities aren't that significant, right? I do take issue with a lot of how it works, but at the same time, it's a great idle function. It's a fun thing to kind of check in on every once in a while, keep your rank high. Yeah, as you can see, I spend a decent amount of time doing Chocolate Factory, right? For rank 443, I've got 6,000 rabbits. Everything's maxed out. I'm 17 rabbits from completion. But look, 3 divines and Zoro. Not having Zoro in 6,000 rabbits feels fucking terrible. Again, I don't mind being gated by time. I don't mind having to wait to get Omega until I've spent 800 billion chocolate. But Zoro? Seriously? A farming upgrade? And it doesn't just unlock Zoro's cape in the chocolate shop. It unlocks the ability to use Zoro's cape. So, yeah, I see that as a great issue. Not a big fan at all of gating things like that. You're either going to integrate it heavily into the game or you're not going to integrate it at all. And it feels like they kind of chose like a middle ground of it, which I'm not a big fan of. But again, Chocolate Factory is nice in regard to the fact that it gives you something to do, right? Again, I'm probably going to butcher your name, but Namlae on the forums mentioned that, alongside other updates like Year of the Seal and the various different Zodiac updates that will come out, is basically to give the average player something to do or something to focus on that's interesting and limited time and is something that you can hop into really easily when you're just zipping around the hub with your AOTV with no idea what to do. I think that that's a great point. Hoppities integrates with that. Spooky Festival, the Jerry Island. Would love to see something for summer as well. Maybe some kind of beach event or something like that. Always want more fishing related content. But yeah, it fits its niche in regards to being just like a fun little idle game that you can kind of mess around on and search for eggs and stuff when you don't have anything better to do. But at the same time, I don't think the integration is there. I think it leaves a little bit to be desired. But the RNG meter is going to be a huge benefit especially for people who have been consistently doing Hoppities in the hope of getting good drops or, getting those divines or getting Zoro, or whatever it is. I think that's going to be a big deal. So huge fan of that. Again, want to keep this video pretty short today. It's Super Bowl Sunday. So I hope that for those of you who do enjoy watching, American football, go your team. My family is a Chiefs family, so that's who I'll be rooting for. If you're listening to this point, I really appreciate you. And I'd love to hear down in the comments, both about Hoppity's hunt and, the Chocolate Factory, but also if you're a football fan, of the American style, let me know who your team is, if you'll be watching the Super Bowl, all that fun stuff. So again, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and peace out.